So you don't think Trump making Jerusalem the capital of Israel has any major significance whatsoever then?
Jerusalem has always been the capital of Israel since it
Right, but
became the capital.
now
Right,
it's kind of official though, you know what I
right.
mean?
Well, it's official to the United States.
The U.S. had their embassy in Tel Aviv till they moved it to Yerushalayim, till Trump recently moved it to Yerushalayim. But the question is Jerusalem the eternal capital of the Jewish people? Well, let's think about that for a second. That's not really something the Torah endorses. Look, the Mishkan moved around. The sanctuary moved around. It was in Gilgal, it was in Shiloh, it was in Nov and Givon, and then it was ultimately in Yerushalayim. But was it meant to be there forever?
I don't think so. And I don't think that the Torah teaches that either. The Mishkan, the sanctuary, traveled, right? But that doesn't mean that God can't later on choose somewhere else, at least according to the Torah. The problem is people take a lot of the prophecies or supposed prophecies in the Nevi'im and they interpret them as perpetual. Like, oh, this is eternal. I mean, one, people translate leolam to mean forever. Leolam doesn't always mean forever. Leolam really could mean just for a long time. There is no forever in Judaism, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah. There's for a long as long as we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. Every promise that God makes us is conditional.
Yeah, but what about the afterlife? Wouldn't that be an eternity?
The Bible doesn't speak about an afterlife. Well, at least the Jewish Bible.
The Jewish Bible, right.
Now, there's parts of Daniel that I'm not even going to get into, but I mean, in terms of Torah itself, it hints to it. It says that Avraham Avinu, it said he died, he was gathered to his fathers, and then he was buried. So it seems like there's a distinction between actually going to Sheol, the pit, and going back to your fathers, but it's just not clear. I wish it was clearer. I mean, there's a lot of things that I wish were in the Torah that rabbis are adamant is there. I just don't see it. Like Gilgulim. I want reincarnation to be true.
That was going to be my next question. Is
Right.
What do you think about
psychic too.
a lot of people in Judaism and Christianity, they won't say it openly, but they'll come to you privately. Hey, James, there could be some reincarnation stuff here, but the Catholic Church was like, throwing it in the trash and stuff, but we dug it back out and take a look at this.
So I wish it's true. The problem I have with rabbis nowadays is that they'll say the Torah teaches, and they'll quote ideas like Sefirot, Tzimtzum, Gilgulim, reincarnation, the emanations of God, all these things. They'll say Torah teaches. The Torah doesn't teach reincarnation. Now, even the Rasag, Rav Tzadok Gaon, he says that someone who believes in reincarnation, that he's adopted a non-Jewish belief. He says it clearly. Now, there's other rabbis who do believe in it. I'm just saying, Rav Tzadok Gaon lived at a time that he predates the Rishonim. I mean, he was one of the heads of the two Babylonian yeshivot. From a historical perspective, he's telling us that this is not a Jewish idea. Jewish meaning there's a lot of things we do that aren't brought down in the Talmud or in Tanakh or in the Torah. So reincarnation was something that we adopted from other people. I wish it's true because, heck, I mean, I don't want to die. Or if I do die, I want to come back but conscious of my previous life. Because that's unfortunately not how the Kabbalists teach that reincarnation works. Actually, the Kabbalists teach that you could come back like an inanimate object, like a stone or like a shoe, or people.
Yeah. If you piss God off enough, man, you're coming back as a rock, dude. Sorry,
So, like Rabbi Mizrahi, he got into some heat. Now, I'm not a fan of these guys. I made a video once defending him because, I mean,
Hey, if I bring up a topic that's uncomfortable, just say so, man.
Oh, I know, man. I'm comfortable. But anyways, he basically just repeats what other rabbis say, but he gets in trouble for it. Right now, I don't believe this, but then he used to teach that if you break the Sabbath in your previous life, you're going to come back as either an invalid in this life or you'll die as a child in this life.
Ouch.
So it's really a form of karma.
That's a strict karma. Wow.
That transfers through revolutions, I guess. That's what Gilgul means. It means like a circle, like over and over again. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. It's not in the Torah for sure. Right. And I'm not mad at him for saying that just because he's just quoting what other rabbis say. Right. But the people who do get mad at him don't know Judaism well enough to know that he didn't make up this concept.
Right. Obviously, you got it from somewhere. Right. Exactly.
Yeah. I noticed that there's this rabbi out there. This guy, Yaron Reuven. he suddenly is going after other rabbis. I'm not a big fan of Chabad.
I was just gonna say that Rabbi Friedman is getting
right. So he's attacking this guy, Manis Friedman, and then I go in with an open mind and I see what the attack is. It's such a stupid attack. And
is he like uber orthodox or something or what?
No, well, they're both Orthodox. The difference is that Sephardic Jews take a different approach to teaching and embracing laws. Most Sephardic Jews, it's only one way or the highway, and Judaism is a lot more colorful than that.
Yeah, I've encountered some evangelicals that are like that.
Most people who take that approach are not well versed in Jewish rabbinic literature. Just because if you are well versed, you'll realize how many different. It's hard to even debate because you have to be so familiar with so many ideas that aren't popular but are there. Instead of saying, no, my way is the right way and then every other way is wrong. He's attacking this guy, Rabbi Friedman. Rabbi Friedman has many hidushim. He has many of his own thoughts that he brings into the narrative, which you're allowed to do. He's definitely a philosopher. Okay, I'm not saying I agree with everything, but he's a thinker. There's nothing that he says that contradicts halakha or contradicts the Torah.
So he's basically thinking out of the box, and these guys don't like that. They're rigid, they're stiff, they're they're set in their ways, as you would say. And
you have to stop attacking people just because they teach differently than we do.
Right. They don't like change. They like to stay the way they are, and
unless they're harming someone. And I think that's the litmus test.
Right.
That what is it? The Hippocratic Oath. First, do no harm.
Do no harm. Right.
Right. So as long as someone's not harming someone else physically, right? Because some Kabbalists could always say, "Oh, well, you're harming his soul." Well, I mean, how do you gauge that? I think the litmus test is physically harming the person or setting him up for physical disaster. But only because someone is explaining something from some different metaphysical idea than you're explaining it, he's not your enemy. It's just a different way of looking at it.
Isn't it the same kind of guys that attack you?
Yeah. Well,
yeah. I mean, you're different.
My defense, the people who attack me, is what law am I breaking? Now, I clearly acknowledge that a lot of what I teach is just my opinion. All right. I mean, some things, it's more of a wake-up call. Say the halakha says this and you're doing this, and there's no source for what you're doing. So that's one thing. But in terms of me expounding on a metaphysical idea, which I don't, but if I did, saying that I think God feels like this, and I think that we should relate to him like that, that's not a reason for someone to attack me just because I'm viewing something differently. Clearly, there's a herd mentality when it comes to all religion. And Judaism, as much as Jews like to make fun of Christians, Jews are as guilty of it, if not even more than Christians are, just because there's more in Judaism to make you heretical. There's a lot more books, right? So in Judaism, what people fail to acknowledge is that you could be wrong, you could be a fool, and still not be a heretic or an idolater. But the first attack that especially these YouTube rabbis do, if you disagree with anything, you're not Pecoris, you're a min. They start, the epithets fly, but these are not just labels. These are labels that typically have a death penalty attached to it if there's a new Sanhedrin. But the rabbis in the Talmud didn't behave like this. That you could disagree. Well, later on, like maybe they did in the time of the Amoraim, but in the time of Hillel and Shammai, when they were alive, there was more peace. After they died is when their students started to kill each other. But you should be able to disagree on the fluff. But now even thought is being regulated. Now you're being judged on what you believe and what you don't believe. How can you adjudicate someone of what they're convinced of? I mean, if you're not convinced of something, how is God going to punish me? I'm not convinced of it. If for some reason I believe God was made up of 6 pieces, all God was 6 pieces, and I'm convinced of that, and I'm not convinced that God is one, you think God's going to punish me for what I'm not convinced of? No. God cares about what you do. He doesn't really care about what you believe. Clearly, if you don't believe in him, you're not going to want to keep the Torah. But thought police, Christians do this, I think, the most. Minute differences on the deity of JC. If you believe this, if you believe the Trinity is the way, or if it's 1 or 3 and 1, and then every church condemns each other to hell on such a minute theological idea. It's not about ethics. It's not about emulating a good God. It's what do you believe? Who cares what you believe?